Who's controlling you? Hey, what's up?
Hello and welcome to the Pantry Podcast, where we're serving up Jesus, not junk food. And we are here with a brand new series about idolatry. So make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share to get this algorithm out so that we get Jesus and the message of his love and grace out to more people across the interwebs.
So why does this even matter?
Why does idolatry matter?
Why?
It's bad, y'all. It's really bad. We're not supposed to do it. And I know that's okay. That's a lot of sins. That's all sins. Not a lot of them. That's all sins. We're not supposed to do them. But I don't know how much we actually sit and call it idolatry when it is. I don't know how often we successfully distill the problem down and label it as idolatry. I think sometimes we say that's an issue of addiction. That's an issue of pride. That's an issue of this. I don't know how often I have personally heard idolatry be used unless there's literally a Buddha statue in the house or something, right? Like, or when someone is just so obsessed with getting a new job or something. Like, but it's a little more insidious than that. And so that's what we're going to do for the next couple weeks. We're going to be talking about different types of ways idolatry might be popping up in your life, not to discourage you, but to encourage you to take it to God. But today we're going to just define those terms. Like, what do we mean by idolatry? What does the Bible say about it? And then kind of just go overarching, and then we'll move forward.
I mean, do you like love?
I love love.
Do you like love?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you like steadfast love?
Mm-hmm.
Who gives steadfast love?
The Lord.
So what if you put an idol in front between you and God?
Oh, no.
Are you experiencing steadfast love?
Right.
To its fullest capacity?
Right.
No, you're not. And actually, Jonah 2:8 says that.
Ooh. We going Jonah. We're quoting Jonah about something other than evangelism and stubbornness.
Oh, God. But so many. It's like, it's so minute sometimes. But then the way it's minute and the way it weasels itself in. Oh, it's like those little bugs in the flour.
Ooh,
you know, like when you get flour, and look, I freeze all of my flour now because it comes with a little egg sometimes, and then like, what are those little things called? But flour bugs. I'm gonna call them flour bugs. Y'all,
they are
type
bugs.
It, look,
flour.
click it in,
Tell
type
us.
it in. Let us know.
Let us know.
But if you don't freeze it, or if you don't take care of it, them things multiply.
So in reaping.
And so you're like, oh, it's okay. You scoop around them, or you kind of like go sift through
That's
them.
protein.
And by the time you're at the end of your like 2-pound bag or whatever, it's like, I could have done this better. So now I freeze all my bags. Just a little tip for everybody: throw it in the freezer for overnight. You'll kill all of them. Okay. Anyways, but like you were saying, as we lead into the defining the term, right? These can be insidious. They can really dig in, burrow in, and just create all kinds of chaos.
It makes me think of when you were talking about an idol standing in front. I thought of sunscreen and those jokes people play where they, like, someone falls asleep on the beach and they sunscreen a drawing on their back or something, and then like they wash it off or whatever, and they're sunburnt or they're tan, except for this area. And I'm gonna say in this scenario in my head, sunscreen was a bad thing. That's the idol, and it's blocking the love. It's blocking it, and so it's gonna be clear depending on how big it's clear that there is a lack. There is an uneven covering because of what is there, you know. And the other verse that we had was Isaiah 45:20, where it says, "Assemble yourselves and come, draw near together, you survivors of the nations. They have no knowledge who carry about their wooden idols and keep on praying to a God that cannot save."
I wonder how many relationships would flourish more. Like really be fire.
Right.
If people would eliminate the idols and bring in more God. It's like, I don't know how many times, the flame, this is probably more back in my days before Christ, but it was like, the flame is gone.
Yeah, people still use that.
Right, and I'm like, okay, I've heard from some Christian.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I throw everybody under the bus. But I'm like, and then you do an evaluation.
Yeah.
And you're like, and very loving evaluation.
Right.
And I can talk to a lot of my friends, and I'm like, where you at with your relationship with God?
Right.
And usually what happens is you see like there these other things have taken over.
Yeah.
And therefore a focus for God isn't there, and the flame has died. But there's hope. It can still be lit. Okay.
Yes.
Now define.
Yes. Yeah. So okay, what is it? In Colossians 3:5, it says, "Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you: sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry." Covetousness, wanting something so bad that you don't care that God hadn't given it to you yet. You just want it so bad. And then in Galatians 4:8, "Formerly, when you did not know God, you were enslaved to those that by nature are not God's." So just on those two, it tells me that this is when you are coveting something other than God. You're wanting to find life's worth and meaning and purpose in something other than God.
Wow.
And you might be sitting there thinking, well, that's not me because I know he's the end all be all. But here's the other thing I've learned is I can say a lot of facts, but do I really believe them? Like, really? Because normally what I really believe, what I really am scared of, what I'm really in love with, those things dictate my actual actions. Like, I really value my health, but guess what? I like sugar and I eat more than I should. So guess what? Guess what I know about myself? I value my tongue's happiness and the effect that sugar has on me more than my physical health, or I'd be doing the opposite.
And this is 100% in the mind and not in the eternal. And watch, what it is are just impotent blocks of stone and wood and jewels and precious metals. But you notice the word impotent there.
That's that word.
That's that word. It's used in all kinds of ways. But let me just tell you something. It really does take away from your joy.
It does.
It takes away from your excitement, your satisfaction. I mean, it's like they take so many things out. Yes. And it's like, oh, like this right here. Because we want to pour all this stuff in. Right. In fact, I look around my house right now. And I'm like, there's a lot of stuff.
Do I need all this stuff? And I have gotten rid of so much.
We have.
And there's still so much.
Oh, so much.
And praise God that I enjoy getting rid of stuff and I'm a lot more cutthroat, but there's still a ton.
But watch, during the release of all the stuff, how satisfying has it been in your life?
Very satisfying. I can't imagine going back to even where we were 6 months ago with how much stuff we had, let alone 6-7 years ago, how much stuff we had. And there's more we're going to get rid of. I feel like there'll be episodes about certain things we're choosing to get rid of. But just
probably during this episode, this whole series.
Well, during this episode. Yes, this series. Yeah. But yeah, I think one of the things in the conversations that I have had with loved ones, these aren't ones on the street. This is people I know very well, very deeply. I don't know how often we actually use idolatry as the term. And I think that it's one of the root causes of a lot of things, a lot of the time. Something that me and Shay, we were talking about this, and he brought up authority, giving things authority. And I was like, yeah. When you start giving things more authority than what God says, when you believe lies more than what God says, that is idolatry. And that's not to make you feel slapped in the face like you should be so ashamed of yourself and you're such a failure and you should be better than that, et cetera, et cetera. Because guess what? At the end of the day, sitting there and thinking those thoughts is also kind of idolatry. You're giving those lies the authority to overpower God's ability to change you. You're using those lies as an excuse, saying that they have more authority, they have more power, and they have more say. They are the truth, not that God can actually heal you, even though it might not be immediate and therefore is not satisfying, right? So I think that that's one of the big things that I camp out in is realizing there's a lot of idolatry going on, right? And it's the reason for a lot of our struggles and a lot of our suffering. And the good news in that is that we do have a God who says he'll deliver us out of it if we would only just confess it for what it really is, so that he can work with us on a level of us not being in denial. Because if you think, oh, it's just this, it's like, well, okay, sure, if that makes you feel better today, but is that going to help you in the long run if you don't just own it for what it is? Call it out for what it is so that light is shined. I know if I spray the wrong poison because I want it to not be a cockroach, I want it to be a snake, well, guess what ain't going to happen to the roach? It ain't going to die. Right. Unless I use the right solution.
Right. I like that. Right solution, pantry staple, because we're growing our own vegetables, right? We got our own garden.
Yeah.
I have been an advocate of non-lethal or non-toxic, I should say, ways of mosquito removal. And I'm sitting out there and I'm spraying the other day and I'm like, shh, and it's garlic. Ooh. And I start thinking. Now, sometimes I feel like God starts implanting.
Exactly.
But I you know, I'm going to claim that one. That God started to implant a thought into my heart that said, but wait, is this really good for what you're trying to achieve within your established home, your garden, everything else? So I started looking it up online, and I find that garlic is a repellent to bees. Doesn't kill them, doesn't get rid of them, but wait, I'm repelling the things that I need to pollinate the garden, to help the garden grow. In fact, without it, you won't get anything. And so you're like, okay, so put all that analogy together, right? And then, of course, you know, I come up with like just a bucket in the backyard to kill the larvae of the mosquitoes. And that's supposed to be your best thing ever because now you're attacking the source and not just the nuisance.
Right.
Attack the source. Stop going after the nuisance. Like find the source and not just be, you know, because I think a lot of things are deeper than what we see on the outside, right?
That analogy snuck up. I'm like a big fan. It snuck up in some cool ways.
And so we sit there, we look at this and we say, okay, hold on. I have to be cautious, and that's what we're going to be talking about over the next couple weeks or so, whatever. Maybe, look, if people write and say, hey, I want to talk about this.
The idolatry of this.
Yes. Look, we'll dig in.
Sure.
Because I think it's important for us to start to recognize, repent, and recover. Because another point that you had thrown in there, and I'm sitting there thinking about that because, you know, we're like, okay, so how this change, right? And repenting, but used another word, confessing. So confessing, right? And I think some people are like, oh, confess. No, you know, real true confession is realization. True confession is a true realization that you need change to reestablish your position in God's house.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it's not your eternal position, it's how you relate.
Yeah.
And when there's something standing, I did that with the youth. It's like sin, right? And I had them stand in front of a mirror at youth group, right? And then I just had them like start stepping in front of the person who's trying to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And the more sin that comes in, the less you see. Now, look, you could use that analogy not just in identity, but also in being able to see what God is bringing forth in your life.
Yeah.
So you just start putting things between you and God. Dangerous. Dangerous.
Yes, that's what idolatry is, because you're starting to believe things that aren't true, and if you don't start confessing it for what it is, you start justifying it in ways that insulate it and keep it away from criticism. You keep it away from correction, and it can establish more and more. And there's so many plant examples that could be used about that, and I don't think that we need to. No. I think that what we need to do, as far as just a general action step, is to start listing, being courageous. Now, this is private courage between you and the Lord.
That's good.
Sit down and make a list of things you think / that you know are the things that you're giving too much authority, that you're giving too much control of your life. And start really you can ask the Lord, because he'll kind of lay them on your heart and you can write them down. And the courageous thing, the thing that takes courage, is actually writing them down, because I can ask you to do something all day and you'll write down the safe answer, and the thing that really, really needs to die, you're not going to write down. So you got to be courageous and write that thing down anyway and give it to the Lord. That's the step. And as we kind of walk through this series, you might come to new realizations that didn't just come up front. Maybe God knows you're not ready for that yet. That's also a reality. Conviction comes in its time, and we're not supposed to shun the conviction, but sometimes conviction comes and we ignore it, and it becomes an idol the second you ignore the conviction, because you're giving it authority to stay. And it's okay. And I think that's how insidious it is. And of course, it all boils back down to pride, because who are you to give authority, blah, blah, blah. But idolatry is a pretty big deal. Some of the things that I have seen it do is warp people's sense of self, zap people's energy and ability to perform, kind of just truncate somebody's message or ability to, serve God. discourage someone, poison the well because the advice they give starts to be terrible, because if they gave the right advice, they'd be convicting themselves. Sending conflicting messages between what is godliness and what isn't to unbelievers and young believers in the faith alike. Pushing out lies and calling them true when you know they are lies, which actually kind of puts you in a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of situation, although you really shouldn't be because you're a believer. Those all sound really bad.
So, I think we can wrap, because otherwise we're going to cover everything. But no,
we're going to do like episodes on different types of.
I got this. Because like as we're closing this up, because I think it's good, because we're going to keep this going.
Yeah.
Revelation. Ask God for revelation in your life, because, we want to find the things that are prideful. We want to find the things that create self-centeredness. We want to find the things that create greed, gluttony, a love for possessions, and ultimately the rebellion against God. What are those things that are coming into our lives and taking over? And that's what we're going to tackle in the next few episodes.
Yes. We do not want anything stealing, killing, and destroying your walk with the Lord. So, although I guess salvation can't be destroyed, but you know what I mean, guys. It would be a much rockier, less fulfilling kind of ride when there's idolatry.
There is definitely a eternal victory as we have a worldly battle.
Exactly. So let us know what kind of idolatry you would like us to talk about, and we will start implementing that into the next coming weeks. But until then, you can go to pantrypodcast.com for past episodes. You can like and subscribe on YouTube and etc. And you can also support us at patreon.com/thepantrypodcast. So until next time, bye.